Good morning. Hello.
Good morning, Kemly. Welcome.
Thank
We'll
you.
be Thanks for joining us. We'll be starting in just a couple of minutes.
Perfect. I'm here.
Okay, everyone, let's get started. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so pleased to be able to welcome you to the Girls in ICT Day event. My name is Maria Rahani. I am the lead for the public conversation here at Generation Equality Forum. Before we get started, I would like to remind everyone that we do have interpretation available. So if you are in the Zoom chat, please make sure to select your language at the bottom of the chat so that you can follow along. Even if you speak English and so are understanding me in this moment, this will be a multilingual conversation, so it's important that you select the appropriate channel. Okay, with that said, and before we start the event, I just wanted to give a quick overview of the Generation Equality Forum for those of you who are new to this space or haven't joined us before. Generation Equality Forum is a set of global gatherings that is co-hosted by UN Women, Mexico, and France, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Platform of 1995. We're taking stock of the gains we've made in those 25 years and also thinking about where we want to go in the next 5 in order to see a real full implementation of the platform. One of the things that's really amazing about the forum is that it is a multi-stakeholder event, meaning that we're seeing member states, private sector, civil society, youth organizations, all coming together at the table to talk about these issues. We consider the public conversation platform really the public seat at that table. It is an opportunity for you to hear what's happening in these rooms, to give your opinions. We'll be asking you for your ideas as we move towards the outcomes of the forum. So if you have not checked out the platform, if you haven't joined us, please make sure you do so. We'll be adding more of these events in the coming months, and we'll be, excuse me, asking you for your opinion as we get closer to Paris in June. So with that, I'm going to turn it over because I know that you all came here to talk about women and girls in tech. We are so thrilled about this lineup of panelists. I think it's going to be a really wonderful conversation. And to start, I'm going to hand it to our incredible moderator, Zerina, who will be giving us an overview of her work and also introducing the panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear Maria. Thank you for your introduction. Dear panelists and attendees, I want to welcome you all on today's session and wish you a happy Girls in ICT Day. Today is the Girls in ICT Day. As you know, it is celebrated in more than 170 countries with over 11,000 events worldwide by engaging key stakeholders and partners to inspire girls in STEM careers. Currently, traditional employment sectors are declining in response to automation, while innovation opens new ones demanding different skills. And without STEM skills, critical thinking, problem solving, and digital skills, girls and women will be further left behind from equal economic and social participation. And that is the reason why the Action Coalition will explore how technology and innovation can help advance gender equality and create new solutions responding to women and girls' needs in their diversity. It will also address the gender digital divide, online abuse, discrimination, and underrepresentation of women in tech. That is the reason why I always like to mention at the very, very beginning that digitalization is at this point no longer a choice. It is something that is inevitable, necessary, and essential. And it really requires us to build strong and let's say powerful strategies both in the private and public sectors. And closing this digital gender divide and empowering women to enter ICT is key to reducing poverty, growing economies, and building healthy and safe communities. And what I really want to mention is that COVID-19 pandemic really showed us that digitalization is no longer a choice. All of us, including the youngest ones, had to use technology to maintain and continue with our everyday activities. And I'm working for the IT Girls Initiative, basically a joint initiative of 3 UN agencies, UNDP, UNICEF, and UN Women. And while insisting on working with women and girls in this field, we're often asked, why girls? And the answer is that there are 4 times more men than women in Europe with ICT-related studies. And in Bosnia and Herzegovina, country where I am coming from, women do go to college and pursue university education more than men. But unfortunately, there are 3 times less women than men present in the ICT-related study programs. And there are several EU researches that basically shows or suggests basically that gender inequality in the digital sphere is essential, the result of persistence of strong unconscious biases about what is appropriate and what capacities each gender has, as well as about the technologies themselves. An IT Girls initiative that I mentioned before from Bosnia and Herzegovina really wants to change the odds for women and girls when it comes to the access to technology and equal access to gainful and decent employment. And one of the ways to do so is to bring more visibility to successful women in the industry and give them space to refute gender stereotypes around women in ICT, and really encourage more girls and young women to start thinking about studies and careers in this field. So today, it is really my pleasure to talk with 3 amazing women working in the intersection of technology and social justice. Ghufran, Esra'a, and Kemly, welcome. How are you?
Oh, doing great. Thank you for having us.
Perfect. The session is designed to be more like conversation. Feel free to write us in the chat. Even though we have a limited time, we will really do our best to answer all of your questions. I will ask now my colleagues to present themselves, to tell us who are they, where are they coming from, and what is the main interest of their work. Maybe Ghufran, you can start first.
Yes. Hi, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Ghufran Salih, or if you speak Arabic, Ghufran Salih. I am from Chicago, Illinois in the United States, but I have roots in Sudan via my parents. I am currently a data privacy product manager, which is essentially communicating technical data privacy needs to, our business and making sure that our business is in compliance with all of the regulations across the world. And outside of that, I'm a huge advocate for educating young people and young women about their data privacy rights. It's something that's very important, often overlooked, and making sure that they're keeping themselves safe and secure online. Oh, Zerina, I think you're on mute.
Thank you very much, Ghufli. Kemly?
Hola, mucho gusto. Mi nombre es Kemly Camacho. Yo soy coordinadora de la cooperativa Sulabatsu aquí en Costa Rica. Es una empresa sin fines de lucro, autogestionaria y asociativa que trabaja en el tema de desarrollo local con tecnologías digitales, y desde hace 10 años venimos trabajando un gran programa que se llama TICAS, que busca generar un liderazgo de las mujeres en la industria digital o en el sector digital a través de diferentes estrategias, una de ellas orientadas a las niñas y a las adolescentes, y que tiene como objetivo que las tecnologías digitales sean un espacio para posicionar la voz y las propuestas de las mujeres más jóvenes. Mucho gusto y un placer.
Thank you very much, Kemly. Now I will ask Esra to
Thank
tell
you so
us
much.
something
Thank you.
about herself.
Yeah, my name is Esra'a Al Shafei, or if you speak Arabic, Esra'a Al Shafei. I'm from Bahrain. I'm the founder of Majal.org, which for the last 17 years has been developing digital platforms to amplify underrepresented voices in the MENA region. So these platforms include MIDI tunes for underground musicians who use music as a tool for social justice advocacy, as well as tools like ahwa.org, which uses gamification to engage and protect the LGBTQI community in the Arab region.
Thank you very much, Esra. Before we even start answering some of the questions, I really wanted to mention that we were passionately reading your comments on generational equality platform. So we really wanted to include as much questions as you wrote us in order to give you appropriate answers. And I really want to say that the situation is different across countries, and I'm really happy to see a lot of countries here present, so we can discuss what are the problems of digitalization and how others solved it, so we can see the lessons learned and what are the examples of good practice in other countries as well. I will firstly start with Ghufran. You already told us that you have really successful career in the IT sector, and I was really, I wondered how basically did you get involved in the field of the ICT, and to explain a bit more about the branch that you're currently working in, and maybe somehow to compare the beginning, whether you were afraid to enter ICT and what are you feeling right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So this actually starts like back in elementary school, like primary school. We actually took ICT classes in preparation for IGCSE, which was the exam that we were going to take for college. And so I fell in love with computers just generally and figuring out how they work. And, when it came time to get into secondary school and to start choosing my courses, I really wanted to continue on the path of ICT, of technology, of learning more about how humans interact with technology and how we change the world. And so I continued with that. And then I actually went to Syracuse University and I graduated with a degree in information management and technology. which is basically the same thing as ICT. And my emphasis specifically was in data analytics. I knew that data and just information is so powerful, and especially when collected and used the right way, can be such a force for good, but can also be a force to destroy the world. So, I wanted to study that. And it took me 4 years to kind of realize, like, what do I want to do with technology? Kind of like, what am I going to contribute to this field and thus put out into the world? And it wasn't until I think my senior year, my last year of university, where I realized that privacy, ethics, and technology was where I wanted to sit. Because I can code, I've learned languages, and I can build an application if I'd like to, but that to me wasn't the most important part. It wasn't building the application, it was the use of the application. It was how people interact with it. It's how people understand it and use it to better their lives, and not to just put money in the pockets of big companies. So that's essentially what I wanted to do. And I was very lucky right after I graduated to find a job with a company in biotechnology. So my current company, we produce medical devices, but my side is working with our web developers to make sure that our website is always in compliance with the General Data Protection Regulation, which is the EU's big data privacy policy, as well as any other policies that exist in the world. And that's when I started to learn more about data privacy and how, for the most part, our data is unprotected and there's no one there to advocate for us. And no, that's not true. There are people to advocate, but sometimes their voices get lost, especially in a country like the United States, where we don't have a uniform policy to protect consumers. So, companies are just profiting off of data of young people, and they're not really getting the opportunity to know what they're giving the companies. And so that's kind of where I found my niche of like, I can sit through and read I can read 400 pages of the UK's privacy policy, put it into simple words so that young girls and young boys and just everyone can be able to understand what they're giving, what data they're giving to companies, and how they can protect themselves online. So it was a very long-winded way of describing what I do. But yeah, I got into it from a very young age, but it wasn't until I was older that I figured out, oh, I like to read and I like technology. Great. There's something for me.
Well, this brings me to one sentence, and that is, when we are downloading our apps, we just click, we accept all, and just, I don't know, let it be there on my phone, I will use it. But then we really do not read those maybe 1, 2, or not just pages, it may be 10 sentences we do not read, and we are giving so easily all of our data, everything what is stored in our phone. And we really do not pay attention on what others basically can get out of these data that we click, just approve, accept everything.
It's designed for you not to be able to click through it and not read it, because it's all legal jargon. I challenge the audience, like, if you could read a data privacy policy, if you have access to it for any application, like I read the TikTok privacy policy, and if you read it, you're like, oh gosh, I'm giving more information than I thought that I did. And that's a really eye-opening experience, because you're like, well, I don't want to give them all this information. What can I do? In the policy, it also tells you what you can do about it. It's just that not everyone's able to read it.
If there is anyone here that is listening to us and that basically reads every single privacy policy, please write us in the chat. So
please
we can
do.
know. Yeah, please do. And then of course the cookies and everything that we click on, except on every single web page, and whether that web page sells our data to another web page, we do not know, because we do not read. So I love the way how you described it. And that brings me to Esra, to another question. When we are talking about barriers and obstacles, and how Ghufran basically decided what is going to be, which branch basically is the most interesting to her in the ICT sector, what obstacles or barriers have you faced in ICT, and what basically resources did you use or utilize to navigate these obstacles?
Yes, sure. Thank you for asking. When I started my work in civic tech in Bahrain almost 18 years ago, there really wasn't a lot being done at the time to support women and girls in ICT. We were discouraged from pursuing opportunities in tech, and any ideas that we had were not being supported. not by funders, and not by our societies. So even finding technical collaborators was very difficult when they would find that, you know, this is a woman-founded platform, for example. Any technical platform that we had founded as women had additional scrutiny. And recently this has changed, but the divide is still huge. This is especially true for for-profit ventures in the MENA region. There aren't a lot of funds that prioritize the importance of having equal representation and access to technology. To navigate these obstacles, I really had to push hard. I pushed against norms in philanthropy. I pushed against our governments. I pushed against academic institutions that had such a low acceptance rate for women and girls who wanted to pursue a tech degree. I had to push against the fear for my physical safety as my work, but which, by the way, you know, this is why I'm physically anonymous even on these calls, which is a choice that I had made over a decade ago, just to protect myself as much as I can. But, you know, I had to push against that fear because my work was not just centered around technology, but also in amplifying marginalized voices through technology. So I spoke up for at least a decade before my organization started being recognized on an international level. So that persistence was really key. We were very tired of having tools imposed on us that women and girls had no say in and played no role in shaping and advancing. So we started building our own, and that became a very key focus of my work. We wanted to be creators and not just consumers. And we saw that the more that we created against all odds, the more we felt that the barriers were lowering, and resources started becoming more available as a result of that consistency, as well as the quality of the work.
Thank you, Esra. We in IT Girls really love to mention that in order to succeed anything, or in order to do anything, you firstly need to test and search for barriers. Only after proper identification of barriers, you can search for the potential solutions. And you can see other initiatives, other projects, other organizations who did the same, and learn from them, not just from their successes, but also from mistakes. I also have one small question for all the girls that are currently watching us and that have a lot of fear basically to enter the ICT sector. What is one sentence, Esra, that you would tell them right now in order to inspire them to join the tech world and not to be afraid of it? Esra, can you hear me?
Oh, this for me, I thought it was
Yes.
For everybody. I was seeing, excuse me, I was seeing Ghufran think about something. So I wanted to give that opportunity. So one sentence only I could share, right? To kind of encourage them to overcome that fear.
Yes, just one motivational sentence.
Well, I would say go for it, because you just sort of have to be the future that you envision. No one else is going to create that for you. So you have to be the creator that makes that possible. Amazing.
Amazing, Esra. Thank you very much. Because in my experience, and when you take all of the researchers all around the world, let's say in Bosnia, we see that nearly 33% of girls are thinking that their families would never encourage them to enter the tech world, because tech world is not for women. It is reserved for men only, and it is male dominated sector. And those are the things that we really need to talk about, to give them motivation to do whatever they want to do, and that there is a place in this sector for them as well. And that brings me to my next question to Kemly. Kemly, when girls are having difficulties to be involved in the ICT sector, let's say in your country, they may be, I don't know, traditional issues. They may be several stereotypes, or they do not have IT equipment or IT connection at all. I don't know. There are so many different problems across the globe. what is your advice, and basically what you used to do in the past and what you are currently doing in order to overcome all these difficulties when it comes to empowering more women to enter the ICT sector?
Gracias, y muchas gracias a mis compañeras de panel, la verdad muy interesante. Si yo tuviera que darle una frase a las chicas, les diría que el mundo digital es otro espacio donde tenemos que transformar, y es otro espacio que tenemos que construir para nosotras mismas. Yo quería, digamos, reflexionar alrededor de 5 cositas, digamos 5 cosas a partir de la experiencia que nosotras hemos tenido ya de 10 años de trabajar con niñas y adolescentes y muy especialmente en zonas rurales. Yo creo que algo que me hizo mucho pensar, Ghufran, es en relación a cómo es que vamos a incorporar a las niñas en los sectores tecnológicos. Yo creo que tenemos que encontrar caminos desde otros referentes distintos a cómo se ha construido el sector de tecnología, porque el sector de tecnología ha estado construido principalmente por varones urbanos blancos. Entonces, nosotras las mujeres tenemos que empezar a imaginarnos otra tecnología y construir otras formas tecnológicas. Una cosa que dice Ghufran y me parece muy importante es que las niñas comprendan cómo funciona la tecnología. Ghufran se refería, por ejemplo, a que ella trata de popularizar todos los términos, digamos, de referencia del uso de las plataformas, pero yo creo que podemos ir más allá. A las niñas hay que enseñarles cómo es que funciona la tecnología para que ellas puedan asumir responsablemente el uso de esas herramientas. Es como cuando les damos una tijera y están chiquitas, ¿verdad? O sea, ellas tienen que aprender cómo funciona, que hay tijeras que hacen daño, etc. Es lo mismo, ¿verdad? Entonces, para mí un primer punto es que tenemos que, y eso no se hace mucho, ¿verdad? Tenemos que popularizar el funcionamiento de Internet, ¿verdad? Para las niñas. Ese es para mí un primer consejo y sigo a Ghufran en ese aspecto, ¿verdad? Lo otro que me parece muy importante es que lastimosamente en nuestras sociedades, ¿verdad? Las niñas que pueden acceder a tecnología y utilizarla frente a quienes no la pueden utilizar, no solo genera una desigualdad, sino que a veces genera hasta una culpa, ¿verdad? Una especie de vergüenza social de no poder yo utilizar esas herramientas, no saber cómo hacerlo, ¿verdad? Entonces creo que es muy importante trabajar con las niñas en el tema de esa no solo no es tu culpa, sino que es un derecho que tienes, ¿verdad? Porque como la sociedad nos impulsa tanto a la competencia, ¿verdad? A competir unas con otras, y las que no tenemos las herramientas suficientes quedamos totalmente rezagadas e invisibilizadas. Entonces creo que tenemos que ayudar a las niñas a hacer un giro de el yo me siento excluida a yo tengo un derecho, ¿verdad? Entonces eso también es otro trabajo que nosotras venimos haciendo. Este es, digamos, un derecho que ustedes tienen, ¿verdad? Y entonces les proponemos de alguna manera empezar a abordar mucho más colectivamente que individualmente el acceso a las tecnologías y la incorporación de ellas en el mundo tecnológico. Y en esto también hacemos un giro porque en general se mira la incorporación en el mundo tecnológico desde la competencia, desde la individualidad, desde el éxito comprendido como el tener la mejor empresa, la mejor aplicación, las mayores ganancias, ¿verdad? Entonces buscamos con las niñas que propiciar mucho más usos colectivos de la tecnología y soluciones colectivas de la tecnología. Entonces, a mí me parece muy importante darle también ese giro desde la perspectiva de las mujeres hacia usos colectivos y no tanto usos individuales. Y finalmente, generar todas las posibilidades para los espacios creativos de las niñas y las jóvenes, ¿verdad? Las tecnologías tienen que conectar con las propuestas que ellas tengan, o sea, con las visiones que ellas tengan. Hay que ayudar, hay que apoyar con tecnología que ellas puedan hablar. Yo creo que si hay un grupo, por lo menos en la experiencia de mi región en Centroamérica y en Costa Rica, si hay un grupo etario que está muy poco escuchado, son las niñas y las adolescentes, ¿verdad? Entonces la tecnología, como decía antes Sara, el uso de la tecnología con la música, con el dibujo, con los fanzines, los journals, otro tipo de herramientas que le permita a las niñas realmente posicionar sus propuestas y sus visiones. Es el cuarto, digamos, mensaje que quería dar en términos de cómo abordar esta exclusión de las niñas de las áreas tecnológicas. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Kemly. This was really, really, really inspiring. I mean, I saw Ghufran here, like accepting some things that get Kemly listed. Basically, that brings me to something that I used to say to girls in our region, and that is, you cannot become something if you do not see that someone. So that is the reason why we always want to find role models in the ICT sector and show them to girls. And that is really important today also, because we have these three amazing women here talking about what they're doing. And I hope that a lot of girls and women will be motivated to try something in the ICT sector. I want to ask Ghufran and then Esra, what action steps can participants really take to address the lack of representation of girls in ICT? So basically, imagine different target groups. What would you advise them to do, and how can they basically do it in order to have more women in their countries that are interested in the ICT or that they are working in the ICT sector?
That's an amazing question, but it's very complicated and very complex, especially considering I have a very narrow view of ICT. I can only see it from the perspective as like a Black Muslim woman in the United States. So I'm going to be speaking strictly from that perspective and for no one else. So one of the things that I think is really important to recognize is the power of mentors and allyship, and why that's really important to start that from a young age. If I would have seen more Muslim women or more Black women or more women, period, in the field of technology presented to me either through media or through my classes, I would have had, so like I wouldn't have as much imposter syndrome as I do right now. I wouldn't feel as though I don't belong in this field. All of the class, pretty much every single class that I took in high school that was related to, or in secondary school that was related to ICT, was taught by a man. And it was a white man in a majority white male class. And at times you feel inadequate, or you feel, oh, my project isn't going well. Let me go to my professor, let me go to my teacher, let me talk to them. My teacher was never empowering to me. He would always just say, you know, you're not trying enough, you're not reading enough, you're not, you know, coding it the right way, you missed a semicolon here. And that's really discouraging to hear. That was like to the point where I almost was like, should I even be in this field? The same thing happened in college, where I think I had a class taught by a woman 3 times in my 4 years at college, at university, which was, again, it was another discouraging thing. But with those professors, like female professors, I started to make very obvious mentorship connections. I would go to them after class, ask them questions. I would ask them questions about their field, about what they do, what I can do to better myself every day in my field. But at the same time, my class environment was still toxic. It was still male dominated. I was being talked over in class. I was being corrected, even though I shouldn't have been corrected. And I never felt represented. And I think that, you know, that's in the United States, the hiring practices of colleges and universities is something tragic. It is, you know, we have tenured professors, basically meaning that our professors will stay at the university until they so choose, the majority of the tenured professors at my specific college for information sciences were white men. And they didn't want to change that. They didn't want to hire new professors. They didn't want to have speakers come in who represented my identities. And that was wrong, because that produced such the opposite of empowering environment for the women of my class. And we all felt that. But the thing is, we all came together and we didn't compete. We realized that if we competed as women, we weren't going to be able to make our mark in this field and in the college that we wanted to. So we all came together. We would all like come together for projects, or if we needed help with a coding assignment, or if we were looking for career advice towards the end of our university experience, like I knew that I could go to any woman in my college and ask for help. And that was so great. But I wish we had more support from our institutions. And that's the thing, is what Kemly was saying, is that this field, these institutions, they were built by men, by white men for white men. And it is, I mean, I am taking it upon myself to try and dismantle that at my college level or at my organizational level. And yeah, it's a lot of work and it's tiring and it's tough, because in my department, I'm one of the only Black people. I'm one of the only women. It's very difficult, but I will still take on that responsibility to kind of start paving the way for other people, because I never, ever, ever in my life want anyone to feel the way that I did. And so, you know, from my perspective, I think to start addressing that, it's representation, it's speaking up, and it's, oh gosh, what's the last thing? It's finding those mentors and those people to empower you. And they don't even have to be in ICT. You know, a lot of my mentors are not in my field, but they still give me that advice that I need to be able to push on and not feel that sense of, oh, I'm an imposter, let me quit. Because I contemplate quitting at least every week. And the thing is, you know, going back to what we were saying earlier, if I could offer one piece of advice, is that if it scares you, if this field scares you, if the innovation scares you, that's great. Take that with you and push forward, because it's going to be worth it. It's so, when you see the change that you'll make, the work that you do, the people that you'll be able to meet, it's unlike anything you ever feel. Thank you.
So baby steps, when it feels scary to jump, that is exactly when you jump, basically going baby steps, one step by one step, and until you basically finish or I don't know, have your goal on your plate, and you're absolutely you're feeling wonderful
Zerina,
because you achieved it.
Complementar a Ghufran?
Of course, please.
Yo, siguiendo a Ghufran, a veces a nosotras nos preocupa mucho impulsar que las chicas ingresen a las carreras tecnológicas. Y nos preocupa mucho porque a veces sentimos que las estamos mandando a la guerra solitas, ¿sí? Porque ese espacio de la carrera tecnológica universitaria, sobre todo en las universidades, es como lo describe Ghufran, ¿verdad? Estamos mandando a las niñas a tratar de enfrentar ellas solas unas relaciones de poder muy fuertes, masculinas, que están construidas por muchos años en las carreras de tecnología. Entonces, y las enviamos solas a esa guerra, a veces incluso sin el apoyo de sus propias familias, ¿verdad? Entonces, creo que en eso tenemos que empezar a empujar códigos inclusivos para las carreras tecnológicas, que las certificaciones de las carreras universitarias incluyan el enfoque de género, sobre todo las de ciencia y tecnología. O sea, no podemos seguir pensando en que la responsable de transformar a la ciencia y la tecnología es la chica. No podemos seguir haciendo eso. Creo que nos hemos equivocado en eso. Tenemos que empezar a generarle nosotras los espacios apropiados para que ella no vaya para la guerra, porque así es como muchas veces ellas se sienten, ¿verdad? Entrando a un espacio donde las que salen de ahí son sobrevivientes, ¿verdad? Y eso no se vale, porque tienen ellas que enfrentar eso. Entonces quería complementar un poquito a Ghufran con eso.
Thank you, Kemly. So basically, to pave the way, as we would say, I would also, I really want to ask Esra on her opinion on this topic. I think it would be valuable insight from the three of you, thinking from different perspectives. But then again, Esra, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Perfect.
So for me, I think it is so crucial to provide also educational resources that are accessible, free, or very affordable. I wouldn't be where I am today without open source software and video tutorials that really taught me the limitless possibilities of technology. How we can create and imagine not just platforms, but also safe spaces for our communities, spaces that were for us, that weren't inviting to us, or where we didn't feel wanted and accepted. Because just like how institutions are built primarily by men and white men, the internet is also built by and for them, the infrastructure by and for them, the primary platforms that we use today by and for them. So that drive to reimagine a better and more diverse internet is what led me to this commitment of never settling to just being a user. So we can encourage girls and women to embrace technology rather than dismiss it due to the obstacles that and the many, many stories of toxicity in tech, which can be very scary and demotivating, but that makes it even more urgent to partake in it. It's important to also carve out spaces where it's enjoyable to learn, but more importantly, safe to engage in these educational activities, safe from harassment, safe from trolling, safe from any forms of abuse. And it's possible to design and build products and tools that embrace and encourage that kind of culture, making people feel that they're a part of something rather than a burden as a user, or that they're not attempting something impossible, because there's enough room in this space for all of us to be active creators. So finally, resourcing is still falling significantly short. When many foundations release their numbers as it relates to funding women and girls in tech, it's a pathetic amount, and when they fund tech, it's always by white men. The fellowships go for white men. We have no excuse today not to support and fund girls in ICT, period. It shouldn't be the exception. It should be the norm. And we need to fund more than just hackathons and code academies. We need to fund projects and platforms that are being born out of these learning sessions, out of these collaborations. We need to encourage and support these collaborations and ensure that they're resourced, to take on some of the most pressing challenges in our societies. So, oftentimes we hear people saying, by people primarily in foundations, that they want girls in ICT to thrive, but then even philanthropists themselves have such a huge barrier to entry that many girls in ICT around the world cannot meet any of these massive bureaucratic standards meant to serve the exact same communities over and over again without enabling others to get a foot in the door. So I would end by just emphasizing funding, accessibility, and inclusivity in a genuine way, rather than abusing these words for the sake of marketability and nothing else. Because we will hold them accountable, and we have to hold them accountable. We showed up, they have to show up too.
Thank you, Esra. Thank you, Esra. This was a great summary from what Kemly and Ghufran also mentioned. And right now, I was really thinking about all the questions that we got through our platform, where people really try to ask us concrete examples of how something can be done in practice. And now I'm thinking about young girls and how we need to educate young girls how to use internet, how to be safe on the internet, to know what is expecting. What they basically how they can react, how to protect themselves, and to know how many dangerous things they can find there, because they never know who is, let's say, on the other side of the screen. Yes, there are different socioeconomic, let's say, situations across the countries. There are rural areas where people do not have internet. In Bosnia, you have schools that have only one laptop for I don't know, class of 30 students, and they have ICT for only an hour per week. It's totally different than in the big cities. And then we say, okay, we can form IT girls clubs. We can form non-formal education until we solve that issue with government, until we go to work together with government so we can have laws, so we can introduce another, let's say, tech subjects in the curricula. And that brings me to the conclusion to have strong partnerships, because you cannot do anything or everything by yourself. I mean, you can, but if you, let's say, if you have partners in the IT private sector in your countries, then you can work more on providing internships, on providing, I don't know, what Ghufran said, mentoring classes for girls. It is extremely important when you enter ICT, basically, to have your role model who is going to tell you that if you fail, it's okay to fail, because you'll fail five more times until you make it right, because you have to fail, because if you do not fail, you'll never know what it feels to be right. And not to, what one girl told me, I was thinking that I will be the best if I do everything right now, and instead of writing 3 pages, I will write 13 pages because it will make me better. And then the mentor actually told her, less is more. Really focus your thoughts, focus your use on what is really important. And we do not have that system basically in our countries, where teacher can be really, I'm not saying not open-minded, but that you can see your teacher as a friend. But mentor, you can see as it is basically your friend. It is person that you are working with on a daily basis for several hours, and then you really have that kind of relationship. Networking also really, really important. Hackathons, competitions, by directly including women in the IT sector is really, really important. Those are some of the answers that we basically got through our Generation Equality platform. I also have one question for Kemly, and the question is, how can organizations of women and girls working in rural areas help facilitate access to innovation and technology for women and girls in these areas?
Muchas gracias. Bueno, pues voy a hablar un poquito desde la experiencia, o sea, cómo lo hemos hecho aquí en Costa Rica, ¿verdad? Porque, bueno, como me imagino pasa en casi todas las regiones, pues las zonas rurales son las más excluidas de muchas cosas y además de la tecnología. Y también en el caso nuestro, centroamericano, en las zonas rurales es donde principalmente habitan las mujeres indígenas, las mujeres afrodescendientes, las mujeres migrantes, las mujeres que están en lo transfronterizo, ¿verdad? O sea, que hay, digamos, la complejidad de la exclusión es muy importante en las zonas rurales. Pero bueno, hemos ido desarrollando varias estrategias. La primera, como decía Zerina, es nosotras siempre iniciamos con una construcción de redes de apoyo, ¿verdad? Entonces, multi-stakeholders de instituciones, organizaciones, actores locales que quieran apoyar el desarrollo de las mujeres y las niñas en el área tecnológica. Con estas redes logramos de alguna manera encontrar espacios de conectividad que puedan ser usados colectivamente. Y ese es mi otro punto que sí me gusta mucho insistir. Cuando trabajamos con las niñas, no trabajamos con cada una individualmente, sino en espacios colectivos donde la construcción de las tecnologías que ellas quieran desarrollar sean colectivas, ¿verdad? Entonces, vamos a universidades que tienen laboratorios, vamos a colegios que tienen laboratorios, vamos a instituciones públicas que ponen a disposición algunas computadoras o herramientas tecnológicas, ¿verdad? Buscamos espacios y con estas redes también garantizamos la igualdad de condiciones para todas, es decir, les pagamos pasajes de donde vengan, alimentación, hacemos espacios de cuidado cuando tienen bebés, o sea, tratamos de garantizar que cuando van a juntarse para construir tecnología juntas, todas tengan las mismas condiciones para poder sentarse tranquilamente a construir esas propuestas tecnológicas. Lo segundo, digamos que nosotras hemos aprendido es que con las niñas y, bueno, con las mujeres en general, pero para niñas y adolescentes ha sido para nosotras fundamental relacionar las necesidades de su entorno inmediato con soluciones tecnológicas o con propuestas tecnológicas. Entonces, por ejemplo, las niñas centroamericanas están preocupadas por el ambiente, están preocupadas por los entornos de violencia en donde viven, están preocupadas por el abandono que tienen, están preocupadas por la pobreza en que viven. ¿Cómo hacemos para conectar la tecnología con esas preocupaciones, verdad? O sea, creo que una estrategia que a nosotros nos ha servido mucho es la conexión de las propuestas tecnológicas de ellas con su entorno inmediato directo, ¿verdad? Y además este es un abordaje feminista, ¿verdad? Primero nosotras las mujeres atendemos ese entorno inmediato en el que vivimos, ¿verdad? La tecnología con un enfoque feminista debe tener esa prioridad, ¿verdad? Entonces, y lo tercero, digamos que yo diría, es que utilizamos herramientas tecnológicas para fomentar la creatividad. Entonces, por ejemplo, ellas desarrollan productos de biosonidos, por ejemplo, donde con los sonidos de su entorno desarrollan una propuesta, ¿verdad?, sobre cómo es su vida, por ejemplo, ¿sí? O con el rap, trabajamos mucho con rap y con música digital, trabajamos mucho con historias digitales basadas en imagen, ¿verdad? Entonces, para mí la fórmula es una red de apoyo, un espacio colectivo, condiciones similares, conexión de las preocupaciones inmediatas con la tecnología y el fomento de la creatividad lo más que se pueda, olvidándose de soluciones estructuradas ahí, ¿verdad? Que vienen de otras formas de pensar, digamos. Entonces, esas es como para nosotros las 5 cosas que han sido muy importantes para abordar el tema de las niñas y la tecnología que impacte en sus vidas.
Thank you very much, Kemly. This is really, I mean, those insights are really, really valuable. I'm 100% sure to all attendees that are currently listening to us. But I still have small amount of time to ask Ghufran and Esra'a one more question, and it is, what are some policy wins that we have seen to ensure gender equality in technology? Have you seen them, or do you know some examples of practice that worked elsewhere? So you can share it here with our panelists and our attendees. So maybe they can, I don't know, formulate thoughts, views, beliefs based on those policy wins that worked elsewhere.
Ghufran, you go first.
So
you could see me thinking, I'm sure. So I'm not the most educated on the topics of gender policies in the United States as it comes to ICT, because I don't want to speak, again, I'm not trying to speak out of turn, but this isn't something that like we're widely seeing. It's just companies are allowed to hire who they want to hire, and organizations are allowed to sponsor who they want to sponsor. What I've seen that works is contracting organizations like Girls Who Code, Girls in IT, to companies or to universities in order to integrate more women into their, and breed more, not breed, oh God, that's a terrible way of saying it, but you know, inspire more women to join their organizations and join their companies. As you know, as kind of like a funnel into you know, a career path. on a country level or on a statewide level, there's not a lot that is done in terms of like anti-discrimination laws or kind of keeping companies in check and keeping universities in check with how they admit their students and their how their hiring practices for workers. Like I know product teams, like literally teams who develop products for people around the world, like not just white men, but everyone, but the team is majority white men. And how does that make sense? If you're trying to make a product or a service that is for everyone, that is targeted towards everyone, and you're developing an AI or anything, an artificial intelligence system, and you don't have representation of your customer base, then it's not going to work. So one of the things that I've seen is just partnering up with organizations. Implicit bias training has become a very big thing in corporate nowadays, and in universities as well, where they have they're all professors or all workers or all teachers go through a set of trainings that help them get rid of whatever bias that they might have against women and people of color. Does it work? Sometimes it just doesn't get to the target audience that it needs to get to. So it's still a very complicated issue in the United States, and it needs to be addressed. But there are still ways that they're working on it.
I think that the change is slow, but we're changing something. It is slow, and I think that us today being here talking about this topic is really, really important. That is one more step, really trying to talk about all those biases. You identify them properly, about all stereotypes that many women are faced worldwide, talking about networking and having these kind of structure of people that you can contact in case you have problems around something or you need help towards something. Then partnerships, again, Ghufran, you said partnerships, strong partnership, because we are all in this together. And then it brings me again on digitalization is no longer a choice. There it is. It's knocking on our door. I mean, it's already there, and we need to work together, really together as men and women equally, because in order to be sustainable, we really need to be present equally in the ICT world. Esra, do you have something to add?
Yes, I think, unfortunately, in terms of policy throughout the region, I'm not super encouraged by the progress, but I also see many other organizations innovate and fight hard for to protect women online, not just human rights advocates, but also just protecting their very digital identities, sometimes even just the right to exist online. So we see this also through the work of the Digital Rights Foundation in Pakistan, for example, and their policy advocacy to protect women and girls and even trans communities online against harassments. And then we also see the Wikimedia Foundation is making a lot of effort to ensuring women are better represented in Wikipedia, that we take big steps against trolling and abuse towards trust and safety, so that the effort of building knowledge is equitable and accessible to everyone. So these are all, small steps, but they're steps in the right direction. It's also advocacy groups, holding technology platforms accountable for any policies that make it easy to get away with abusive behavior towards women, which is a profitable problem for them, but a devastating problem for us. So, as you said, it's slow, but we're definitely inching towards more wins in the future.
Thank you very much, Esra. I really wanted to close this talk with the sentence that basically, united we can do more, and we can do a lot. And I would really love if Maria, Naomi, or someone can share maybe our email addresses with the attendees and participants, basically, in case you have any kind of questions, or if we can provide any help to you. We're standing fully at your disposal, because only that way we can share our thoughts, share our views, share our beliefs. And I really strongly believe that we all have, I would say, a small bubble of people, the people that you're surrounded with. And in case you change your thoughts or views on something, maybe you can change the thoughts or beliefs of your bubble as well. So yes, I think that is the key to let's say empowering each other, being there for each other, and working together on more sustainable changes through partnerships, through collaboration. And I would really love to invite all of our attendees to visit Generation Equality Platform. There you can find out more about Action Coalition, about the plans for the next years, about what we talked today, and of course, other topics as well. I will give my floor now next to Maria. I really want to say thank you to Kemly, to Ghufran and Esra'a for being here with us today, for sharing their stories, for sharing everything, basically what they faced in previous, in the past, and what they're facing right now, and the ways how they're dealing with situations in their countries. I hope you can find out more and of course learn a lot from these great and amazing women. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our panelists. This was a wonderful discussion. And to everyone who joined us, please, if you would like to learn more, as Zerina said, join us on the platform. We have a really lively conversation happening there about innovation and tech. And I hope you continue to join us as we look forward to the Paris Forum in June. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.